Why did you settle on classical dance?
When I saw my mother, she was from Hyderabad, Deccan. So I picked up dance. I said, and they banned dance. They all actually banned dancing on stage by women. I said, how can anyone ban dancing? They left the countries. I was shocked. My father was not a product of the Pakistan army.
Art engages the self versus dance engages a community.
Okay, no, wear the chadar, cover your body. It is something to be hidden, something to be shameful. I swear to you, I think these days are darker.
Wait a second.
What is dance and what are the origins of dance?
Where did the idea of the Aurat March?
तारीख लिखी जो मर्दों ने हैं कितने अधूरे बाब इसमें.
Culture is very important in our society, and it is very, very hard to find people to have a good conversation about culture. Today, I have someone that I'd been wanting to talk to for a long time. Not only is she actively involved in the performing arts, but also is an activist on women's rights, equality. You'll know and learn about how the Aurat March came about 7 years ago. You'll find out in this episode what is classical dance and why is dance so important to the human mind and to the culture of our society. And what is it that we can do to preserve culture in this country? Stay tuned to this episode. Sheema Kirmani, how are you today?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. I'm really honored and privileged that you're joining us for the conversation today. And I want to jump right into it. First of all, what brought you into the world of dance?
Oh, well, actually, my parents, my mother, for that matter, because she herself used to learn dance and was very interested that her daughter should learn dance as well.
And she learned classical dance?
Classical, yeah. Everything, all the arts that we learned were classical. My father wanted me to learn music, and so I learned Western classical music for something like a good 10 years of my life. My mother was interested in Eastern classical, so I learned Eastern classical dance. And so they introduced me to all these arts.
So you came from a creative family, would I assume?
No, I wouldn't say they were themselves creative. Certainly my father wasn't, because he was a military person.
Oh, so definitely far from creative.
But my mother was. I mean, she was... but they were kind of a generation of people who felt arts and culture were very important for children's upbringing. And so we were called, all of us, me and my siblings, we were exposed to a huge sort of treasure of literature from a very young age.
And you grew up in Karachi, right?
We came to Karachi when I was 13.
Because a military family typically moves around.
That, exactly. We were all over Pakistan.
Right.
Which was absolutely wonderful, because that's one way that we saw almost all the areas of Pakistan and lived there. And so when I was 13, my father was posted to Karachi, and since then we've lived in Karachi. And and I mean, moving in those small towns and small cities was like, we were always so close to nature, and that was wonderful. And wherever my mother went, the first thing she would do is make herself a member of the library there. And in those days, there used to be libraries, which don't exist anymore. So, because there was no computers and all of this, I mean, you couldn't access books on any other way. So we would go to libraries, we would read a lot. I mean, to the extent that we were encouraged to read as much as possible, encouraged to bring out our creativity. Like on birthdays, my mother would say, you read something, why don't you do an enactment of it?
Really?
Yeah, read it out, or do something with it. We want to see what you've understood.
And this was for all your siblings?
Yes.
How many siblings were you?
It's a small family. I'm the middle one, and I have a brother who's a year older and a sister who's 3 years younger. So we did 3 of us only.
Yeah.
But like summer holidays,
Yeah.
the cousins and all, we would get together. And so we were always encouraged to do this kind of thing. I also remember, because these are things that I find now so rare, that when it's a friend's birthday, for instance, what would you give as a present? Books. Always books. Every year of my life, I was given a book from my
your birthday
parents
present.
for a birthday present. And when we would go to our friends, we would give them books. And they, so this is the kind of, this is how they encouraged the creativity in us, I feel.
From day one.
From day one. And exposed us to all the arts. Without saying, hey, this is what you should be doing. Just absorb it all and then see what you want.
So if you're saying that you had exposure to all of the arts, you did a lot of reading, you found different methods of expression, why did you settle on classical dance? And what was the origins of classical dance, and why did you settle on it? What did you find so inspiring about it?
So my first exposure, in a sense, to dance was like when I saw my mother. She was from Hyderabad, Deccan, India. And summer holidays, we used to travel with her and go to meet her parents. And she would have her ustad come to teach her dance as well as music, sitar. So that was my first exposure to these arts. And she would make little drawings of the things that she learned so that she could come back and keep on practicing, And but I personally, to tell you the truth, I was not seriously interested in any of this at that age. It was just something that you saw happening around you. And when we moved to Karachi and my mother put me to this center, which was run by a couple called Mr. and Mrs. Ghansham, who had actually been invited by the Prime Minister Sarwadi to come and set up a cultural center in Pakistan in the early 50s. And so this was one center in Karachi where people used to congregate to learn dance, music, yoga, classical, vocal, there was instrumental, all sorts of it. It was a beautiful, small little place.
Where was it in Karachi?
Bahadrabad.
In Bahadrabad. Wow.
And from school, we used to go there, and they ran it like because they had 2 daughters. I had about 5-6 children, and they were all these of different ages, and they were also learning all of these things, So their sons somebody was playing the drums, and somebody was playing the guitar and learning it. So it was like a family. And we would spend a lot of time there. And as 13, 14-year-olds, I remember performing with them at huge state functions, And this is still when, so I'm talking about 1963, 64, 65.
The good days of Pakistan.
Yes, they were amazing. And there was a lot of dance and music. And there was it was just something one never thought that, I am going to dance class, or that to have a performance, I have to ask my mother or my father, can I take part in this show? It was just accepted.
And it was not just, you're saying it was accepted throughout society?
Throughout. I mean, at least the section of society in which I was at that time part of.
And that was Karachi predominantly?
It was Karachi. It was the sort of, obviously, a slightly privileged families, educated families, the school that I went to. I mean, everybody was into something or the other. Somebody was learning Western classical music. Somebody was learning Eastern classical music and dance. So people were into all of these things. Yeah, they were very much part of our lives.
Wow. and so at this center...
So I started learning dance with them. And I don't know how serious I was. It was like the extracurriculars that as a kid you are sent off to do, by your parents. And it was actually much later that I got seriously involved
How old were you at this? You said you were about 13.
When I started,
Oh, yeah, 13, 14.
Yeah.
And that's when you first got exposed to actually classical dance yourself.
Yes.
And participating in it and so on.
Yes, absolutely.
And then when did you decide that after seeing it, and all, because it sounds like at the center there was also other
Of course.
activity.
Yes, absolutely.
Where was that decision point that this is it?
So to tell you the truth, that came much, much later. So I did that. I finished my O-levels. I finished my A-levels. I went to art college. I thought I wanted to become a painter. But all of this was going on along with it. But when I went away to UK to an art college, and then I came back, and then I went back to the dance class, and then it started dawning on me that what exactly I want to do. I thought I had I did one person exhibitions because I was really aspiring to be a painter, an artist.
Okay, so you started with an aspiration to be a painter.
Yeah.
So you even went to art college.
I went to art college, yeah.
And so you studied it as even a potential profession for your life, but somehow you pivoted to classical
Yes, and
dance.
then came the 80s, the late 70s, actually, when Pakistan started changing. And if you remember, there was this whole movement to Islamize Pakistan.
I was going to just say, you know what? I should ask it from a perspective of someone in the arts who saw it. When did Pakistan start changing?
So
it was the Islamization,
well, it was
75, 76.
Exactly, Bhutto started
Exactly.
it. People say, it was started by Zia-ul-Haq. Zia-ul-Haq took it to another level, but it started with Bhutto, actually.
And why did he start it?
Bhutto started it when he started losing power. And people when he started becoming very dictatorial, and the people who were part of his party and were his supporters actually became anti him, because they felt he was now moving away from his original mandate, which was Roti Kapra Makan, in support of the working class and the masses. He started firing on the masses, protests and things like that. And then when he wanted to come back into power, he tried to appease the right wing. He banned alcohol. He's the one who banned alcohol in Pakistan. He banned nightclubs in Pakistan. He introduced Fridays a holiday in Pakistan. He's the one who put the ban on Ahmadis in Pakistan.
And his best friend was an Ahmadi too.
So these were the biggest things that I think were the hurdles in the progress of Pakistan. Because till then, Pakistan, kaise taise, was moving slowly forward.
And it was only because...
And then, of course, 71 happened. That was the first, that was the first challenge.
Right.
After Bangladesh, a lot of musicians, a lot of dancers, a lot of composers left because they were Bengalis.
Really?
Oh, yes. Even at the Ghanshyam Center, our music composers were Bengalis, our musicians were Bengali, because if you look at Pakistan, what was West Pakistan but is now Pakistan, and what was East Pakistan is now Bangladesh. But the area that comprises of Bangladesh, that is where a lot of arts were grounded. Dance, music. It was highly developed culturally, as opposed to this area that is West.
So this Karachi didn't really exist before 47. It wasn't a developed city as such. It was more of a fishing village. Exactly. Got populated post-migration, and it brought the culture of the migrants who populated the city and then grew.
Well, that's when dance and music started.
And that's when dance and music started coming. And so because it came from outside,
exactly,
when there was clarity on that region, they all went back.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah, so a lot of the Bengali musicians, composers, painters, were Bengali. They all went back to Bangladesh. Obviously, they were not going to stay here. So I think that was the first challenge.
So the first step was 71 when we lost the talent.
Yes.
And the second step was 75, 76 when...
was a little later when, 75, 76.
When Islamization took place.
Started happening. And then 78, 79, when it went totally so-called Islamic laws. Yeah. Those laws were so anti-women. Those laws were so anti-culture. these were the two victims of this Islamic push to Pakistan, women and culture.
So I find it ironic that someone who was
And so I picked up dance. I said, and they banned dance. They actually banned dancing on stage by women. I said, how can anyone ban dancing? And people left. The ones who had remained on, I mean, after 71, like Nahid Siddiqui, they left the country. And I said, my God, I mean, I actually, in 78, I was already in India to learn dance. I'd already decided that I want to get more knowledge about dance. And Ghanshams had to leave at that point. They actually were forced into exile.
So
because they were non-Muslims.
Created the center in Bahadrabad were forced into exile?
Exactly.
For what reason?
Because dance got banned.
Because dance got banned.
And even before it got banned, they were being persecuted because they were non-Muslims. So they had, that became an issue.
Right.
And it was terrible. Those were very bad, very dark times, The Ahmadis were persecuted. The non-Muslims were persecuted. And the artists, I mean, people started saying to Mr. Ghansham कि ये तो ये क्या हिजरा है, इसको तो निकालो मुल्क से, इस किस्म की चीज़ें. And so they had to run for their lives. I had gone to India by then I had spoken to them that I feel that there's something that draws me towards dance. So he said to me, Mr. Ghansham, go to India. We have been away from there for so long that the things that have developed in the classical traditions have progressed so far in India, and we've been out of touch. If you're serious, then go there. And they gave me the contacts and addresses and said, and I went. And then while I was still there, Mr. Ghansham calls me up and says, when are you coming back? So I said, why? He said, because we have to leave. And we want to hand over our center to you because there's nobody else. And I was shocked. And I said, but I still had a couple of months to go. And I said, I'll be back, in the good 3 months. They said, "Theek hai, we will wait for you to hand over everything." But before I could get back, they had to leave. I mean, they actually had to, what one can say, run for their lives in a sense. And that's when I decided, no, this is not going to die. I'm not going to let it die. I picked up teaching at that point and performing when everybody had stopped. There were 2 girls who wanted to learn further, and so I started teaching them, and that's how it started. And then it went on. Then some of my friends said to me, "Okay, you've been away in India. Show us what you've done, what you learned." And I said, okay. So I used all the recorded music that I brought with them. And because I couldn't get an auditorium or anything, so because it was banned, I organized it at a friend's house. Let's have a small little recital, and I'll call our friends. And we called about 30, 50 people. About 300 people turned out.
Wow. This is in the 80s.
Yeah, this is 80, I think this is 82 or 83.
So right in the middle of everything being banned.
Yes,
sort of
yes. So the act of turning up to watch me perform was not out of love for me or out of love for dance even. It was an act of defiance to this fact that you are banning, your country has banned dance. The leader has banned dance of the head of the state.
Right.
And it was an act of defiance. And I think from that time, my dance became, for me also, an act of defiance to dictatorship, to authority, to say, no, we will resist somehow or the other.
So I find it ironic that a product of a military family that was encouraged by a military father
Yes.
is now facing a ban on that entire thing that she was raised with, the value system, the culture system, the upbringing, by a military dictator.
Yes, but you must understand.
Wasn't that a contradiction?
Yes, but you must understand that my father was not a product of the Pakistan army. He was a product of the British India Army.
Right.
And that
Big difference.
Yes,
Big difference.
Yes, I mean, imagine that my brother is a filmmaker. I'm a dancer. My sister is a very creative person, paints and writes and does all sorts of things. So all of us, and we were encouraged because this was the tradition that they grew up in, my parents, and passed it on to us.
So it was a different military thinking at that time.
Absolutely.
And an upbringing. Interesting. And so when you then saw this migration of mindset, I would say, into a more conservative, specific view of a religion, why did you continue persevering down this path when you knew it was a path of full resistance? Because you had another option. You had art.
Of course.
You had painting. Why continue down this?
Painting, I had decided I didn't want to continue because I found it is very isolating. Like you can only paint when you delve deep into yourself and you are by yourself in a sense. I mean, of course, you are reflecting the society, so you are living in that society. But the process of creation of a painting is very isolating, you know. And also, I'd started feeling I'd started feeling that it is something that is restrictive from the point of view of the number of audience that you get. I mean, where do you exhibit your painting? In a gallery? A gallery is very limited. So your audience is limited. So that was one of the things that I'd started feeling, that I want to engage at a larger and a more active level with people.
And I think that to add to that, art engages the self versus dance engages a community, because I can enjoy dance performances with 5 friends sitting together in a way that is very different from me enjoying art.
Yeah.
We'll all enjoy it individually, introspectively.
And dance, I also felt like being a woman in this society, I felt it was very important for women and for the women's movement, or for any sense of freedom or liberation for women to understand that we should not be ashamed of our bodies, that we need to have that confidence in our bodies, that this is not something to be ashamed of or to hide, you know, which is what we are trained to do from a very young age. So it was also my understanding of this society where I felt I want to do something that is meaningful for myself. I never say that whatever I've done I've done it for others. I've done it for myself. That's the only way I think you can live with what you do, because I want to live in a society which gives me equality. And I want to live in a society where I'm happy. I can only be happy where there's justice, where there's equality, where there's freedom for women and girls to express themselves. And here we were being told, okay, no, you know, wear the chadar, cover your body. It is something to be hidden, something to be shameful, feel ashamed about. And I also felt that, I mean, you know, there was a time when there were a lot of physical attacks on women as well. And I also obviously went through all of that. And I felt that the one way to heal oneself is through this. This is our therapy. This is our healing. That dance becomes such a liberating thing. You know, the exercise of it, which obviously gives you good hormones, like they say to all depressed patients of depression, go and exercise. Why? Because the hormones that are excreted when you're exercising are those good hormones that make you feel good and make you feel happy. And otherwise, you know, depression takes over. So there were a lot of these things as well that were working on me to decide that, no, dance, I have to keep on going for my own sanity and for the sake of a movement which is looking for equality of the sexes.
But at this point, I mean, you're doing all of this at a very dark period in this country's history, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sorry to contradict you. I think these days are darker than they were.
You think these days are darker?
I swear to you, I think these days are darker. Because why? I'll tell you. You see, at that point, I knew who was my enemy. It was the state and the government. Now I don't know. In my audience, there might be 4 people sitting who would be thinking, oh, this woman should be got rid of because she is creating some what they think is obscenity and vulgarity, and that's why they keep on condemning dance by saying, this is anti-Islam, this is obscene, this is vulgar, this is that. I mean, all the time we attack for that. You know how Aurat March is attacked. Even this time there was a case against us that, oh, they're saying dance is a form of expression. Of course it is, but people get... So I think now it is darker because now you don't know. At that time, the people were with me. Or with, by me, I mean those who were...
They were with this whole concept of culture and tradition and expression.
Yes.
And it was a part of society.
Absolutely. It was
But
still
today-
a living part of society. It was, that's what is important.
But what happened in the 80s is that you had a new breed of kids. I mean, 80s product, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I grew up at a time where I can't imagine the Karachi of the 60s. I can't.
Yes.
I
I
just-
mean, I grew up in a Karachi where I could go to nightclubs and order alcohol and
even
dance and
imagine
swing and rock and jazz and do what we like. I mean,
Yeah.
with a boyfriend, and it would be fine, and there was not one, there were many such spaces. And it was part of life. It was not something that was just, it's just a small elite class that does it. No, there was, I mean, there were areas where there were Gonis living and there would be music on the road. And I remember all of these things. These are part of my memories of this.
It's funny you mentioned this. It just immediately takes me back. I was in Riyadh, I just mentioned to you, and someone took me, they're like, I want to show you old Riyadh. Like the old Riyadh. I said, what do you mean by old Riyadh? They're like the Riyadh before 78, 79, before the Makkah was hijacked, right? I think it was 79. And that's when the Islamization movement started in Saudi as well.
Okay.
Anyway, so they took me to this one area and they had these beautiful musical instruments like I've never seen before. In this entire market filled with these wooden instruments. They were like a tambourine, tabla. It looked like a sitar, but
It's a oud, huh?
it was exactly.
Yeah.
And so I asked them, I said, wait a second. I've grown up my entire life thinking that this was banned. And they sat there and they explained the history of how music was a big part of Saudi culture till before the 70s. They showed me cassettes. They showed me the music, and they said that all the mutarwas would come in and break their instruments when this whole very sort of hardcore Islamic movement started. And so the point being that it was a part of Saudi culture, which is sort of where Islam we all believe in Pakistan that that's they're the custodians of Islam. It was a part of their culture. Before this Islamic movement that took place in this entire region, which by the way happened, I would say it was not necessarily a Bhutto issue or a Zia issue. I think it was a US in Afghanistan,
international politics.
Cold War,
Absolutely. I was
and
going
we
to
were
come
just
to that.
unfortunately
Absolutely, we
the,
got-
the recipients of that, and we got affected.
Absolutely, you're absolutely
But
right.
how do we, and so
But
this,
when you say that, I'd just like to add something to it, that it's, I mean, I don't kind of relate myself to Saudi culture at all, or even the present, what you were talking about, the historical stuff.
Right.
I mean, I relate myself to the subcontinental culture.
which is very different.
Which is very different, yes, but which is a very dynamic mixture of the Southeast Asian culture. So you have elements of this Muslim culture in it, and you have elements of Hindu culture in it. You have elements of the local cultures. Most importantly, with the place that we are now living in, I mean, we're sitting in Karachi, and Karachi is part of Sindh. I mean, look at the richness of the Sindhi culture from the time of the Indus Valley civilization at Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Bambor, thousands of years. And we even denied that. I mean, when I started dancing in those years, in the late 70s, and then people would say, this has nothing to do with Pakistani culture, which they still do.
civilization.
Yes. No, the dance that I do.
Oh, the dance.
The dance that I do.
Right.
And then in 1992, I created a dance drama, a kind of a ballet, which is like a story through dance moves about Mohenjo-daro. And link the past and the present. It starts with a young girl learning dance and her boyfriend coming in saying, look, I told you, you must not do this. I am going to break our engagement. And then his friend, his male friend comes and he's very upset and all that. His male friend comes and says, let me take you away from here and we will think about. So he takes him on a journey down the river Indus. And as they're going down the river Indus, they reach Mohenjo-daro. And there are all these statues, the mother goddess, the priest king, the man sitting in a yoga posture, and they all come to life. And and the dancing figurine of Mohenjo-daro. And he sees the same girl in his mind, and he follows her. And through this whole thing, I actually describe the life that these people used to live from the point of view of what is dance and what are the origins of dance. So what are the origins of dance? Human labor, accumulated knowledge of the people or something in something. So you will keep on adding to something you have till it becomes, more and more refined.
So I want to come to the classical dancing. You talk about the origins of dance as being a byproduct of communal.
Yeah, but just to finish that. So that ballet I created, I called it Song of Mohenjo-daro. And at the time, the Ministry of Culture and all said, okay, I asked them to support it. And they said, no, Mohenjo-daro, we don't link ourselves to that. And this dancing figurine.
This is in the 80s.
You know, the dancing figurine was at that point only given away to India.
Wow.
It sits in the Delhi National Gallery instead of being here in the National Museum.
And this was denied to us in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so, so we went through this period of denying what was part of our history, right? And what you were talking about as a part of history is where the origin of dance was. And the origin of dance was human movement as a community. And the community concept came when the agricultural revolution took place and people started sort of living as communities because they could trade, wheat.
Nicely put, yeah.
They could store because they could store food, they could trade, and now they're living in communities. Movement became a part of it, dancing and
you harvest a crop and you do dance.
Exactly. There's a celebration.
Yeah, there's a celebration.
Exactly.
So
So now as this is coming together, the tradition of classical dance in the subcontinent, you also mentioned, has influence from the Far East, right? It has influence from the Hindu culture.
And Buddhist.
And then and Buddhist. And it also has the Islamic touch because Islam came into the subcontinent.
Absolutely.
So what was the starting point of classical dance based on your research? And what are the different, let's say, sections of classical dance? How can I break this up?
So my study and my research has shown me that, the dance form that I practice today, it's now called Odissi. Odissi with the O, O-D-I-S-S-I, Odissi. And in India, they say, it's from a state called Orissa.
Yes.
Okay. The way I approach it is that the stance or the postures that we have in this style are the closest to the dancing figurine of Mohenjo-daro. The three bends of the body, the placement of both the arms, one at the hip, one at the thigh. And I say that it's originated here, maybe in Mohenjo-daro itself.
So you're saying that
one of the oldest civilizations of the world.
So it could have originated here. It could have migrated. It's not that far from here.
Absolutely, and people did migrate. Because when the hordes would come and invade, so the locals would keep on going further south and south, and that's my the way I see it and understand it.
And where did it get? Let's say it did come from the Mohenjo-daro civilization, the Indus Valley civilization. Where did the influence from the Far East come into this?
The Buddhists traveled to Malaysia, to Indonesia, and these areas like Karachi and Mohenjo-daro, they were ports where people would, from Egypt, from a lot of these places, there was trade going on. So I think
because of the trading routes, there was different cultures that were brought in.
Exactly. I mean, look at the Makranis and the whole Shidi culture that we have here. So we have I mean, this is what I want to point out actually, that when I came to Karachi, when I started living in Karachi, I found it such an incredibly city of diversity. There, in my class, mind you, at the convent where I was studying, there were Parsis, Hindus, Christians. We even had a Jewish boy in our class. I mean, this is the kind of city it was. It was so multicultural. And we would visit each other's homes and nobody would ever ask, Kya, what religion are you? And, we would go to our Parsi friend's house where the fire would be there at the just after you enter the door. And she would do that and we would do the same thing. And, and they would come to our house when we had Ramzan or Eid. So it was that was the beauty of Karachi. And I think the beauty in diversity, the beauty in pluralism creates better human beings, because then you are, I won't use the word tolerant, but you are accepting of difference. Today, when I say it's a darker times today, we have stopped
accepting the difference.
Absolutely.
And that is
I think
the biggest
that's
challenge.
the biggest tragedy of Pakistan at this point, which we've passed on to India today as well. You see the fundamentalism rising in India every day,
Yes.
becoming worse and worse. And at that, 30 years ago, we used to look towards India and say, oh gosh, look how diverse, how secular you are. Yeah. And now they are following in our footsteps. And I think that is sad.
And do you think this can be reversed? If, let's say, today we had the superpowers to reverse it,
Yeah.
okay, let's say you and I had those superpowers, what are the 3 things that we would have to do today to be able to reverse this over the next generation?
So, I mean, in spite of moments of depression, I would say I'm an endless optimist. And I think, yes. Why? And I'll also tell you why. And it's my own experience. And that is that I think that the ordinary people of Pakistan are not fundamentalist inherently. They've never been, and they're not today. I have danced at Hari conferences where there have been lakhs of agricultural workers, Haris, sitting, who've never probably seen a classical dance performance. Not one has ever said, yeah, this is wrong, this is against our culture, or this is against our religion. I have performed plays are very, very revolutionary, I would say, because they're very bold. They're talking about issues like early marriage, like menstruation, like pregnancy, like marital rape. Yeah, these are things that we talk about in our performances. Nobody. And where do we do them? Not only in the major city auditoriums. I'm talking about performing in areas like Orangi, Korangi, in small towns and cities of...
You performed in front of audiences in
Absolutely.
these areas.
Oh, yes. This is my major work.
And you find that they're more accepting?
And they are totally accepting. I think out of 50 years of my life that I've been doing this, I started doing this as I said, we started in the 1970s, and this is 2024, so almost 50 years I've been doing it. And there's no area of Karachi that I've not performed in. I mean, in a low-income area, I'm not talking about Defence Clifton, Vagara. I'm talking about these communities from Ibrahim Haidari to the fishing villages to wherever we go and perform. We make ourselves mobile. And this has been my major work all these years. And except for 2 occasions that I can talk of when there was opposition from the men in that community, I've never faced opposition. And these 2 occasions were, they were almost ready to be violent with us, but out of thousands of performances, only 2. And it was not even the main audience who was objecting. It was certain sections of that.
So why do you think they're more accepting? Is it because they...
It is part of their lives. I mean, look.
Or is it because they don't have enough education? Because the education can be biased also, right?
No. I don't think it is about education.
Because you have to understand.
Yes, you're right.
In the
Today's
80s,
education is very biased.
In the 80s, the curriculum was changed.
Yeah.
right? So the way when the Islamization, because the curriculum was changed, we were given a version of a religion
Yes.
and content that was biased.
Yes,
And so now there's a middle class that has been educated based on that, whose views are slightly
absolutely. Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
But then if there's an entire audience that has never experienced the education,
I think maybe you have a point there. I agree. I didn't really think about it this way. I used to think that it's more that, for the ordinary human being, music is and dance and poetry is part of life. Like when a mother is putting a baby to sleep, she will sing to that baby, and she will move with it. It becomes like when there's happiness in a family, somebody is getting married, people would dance there. So, I just felt that this is maybe one. But I think you have a point about the middle class, which has been educated in a very different mindset. And those mindsets definitely have changed.
but I see your point also, because if you look at the lower socioeconomic strata, like you have to also keep in mind that they don't have the ability to afford a lot of gifts and luxury. So how do they express happiness? How do they share joy? How do they gift? You made this point earlier that you were gifted books.
Yes.
Maybe gifting and expression and joy comes through dance and music and singing together, and that communal feeling of happiness, rather than, oh, here you go, here I bought you an iPad, or I bought you a vase, and here's a dinner for two at Sakura.
Yeah.
So it's what they can afford to do that allows them to express happiness together.
And also, keep in mind that, especially if we talk about Sindh, Sufi culture has been very much part of people's life. If you ever go to any dargah or any shrine, the millions of people who visit every day, and they are exposed to the music there. They're exposed to the poetry there. They're exposed to the thought that people are equal, no matter what color, what sex, what class you belong to. This is what Sufism teaches you, to look beyond the exterior and become a good human being. And I think that has also plays a huge part in people's culture. Maybe not so much in the cities that one can, or in the urban areas, but generally, if you look at this state of Pakistan or the country and the rural people, you find that these things are very important in their lives.
True.
And these are the things that make you very accepting of the differences, The Sufi thought, the poetry, the folk tales, the folk music, everybody would sing. And now folk music is dying down also, if you notice, people used to pass their tradition to their son or their daughter. They're not doing it anymore. Two reasons. One, there's no money in it. Earlier people would sit around and give that musician some money, and now people don't give. And secondly, this fundamentalism. They are looked down upon. They're considered, bad. So, there are lots of things where I feel that at present Pakistan is going through some of the darkest times.
So I'll ask the question again. If there were three things that we could do to turn this around, what do you think those three things would be?
First thing I think would be, in my opinion, first thing would be to say that the state must be secular. That religion must not be part of politics and public life.
So it should no longer be Islamic Republic of Pakistan. It should be the Republic of Pakistan.
Yes, which is what it originally was to be.
I think that is the hardest. I don't disagree, but I think that is the hardest thing to do.
It is. But if there is a desire for this country to move forward, I think that is one thing we have to think about. That's my first thing. Secondly, I would say, bring equality for the women.
And you're no longer driven by a religion, and you're
by one particular
religion.
And you're saying that religion is your private matter. That is what secularism means. It doesn't say, no, you don't practice your religion. You practice whatever religion you want. And that's what if we keep on ad vertum, we keep on repeating what Muhammad Ali Jinnah said, that religion will not be the business of the state. It will be your private matter.
Right.
Okay. So that is my first criteria, that we must be a secular state and not impose any religion onto the state's laws and the people's public and lives. Two,
women's rights,
equal rights to women, which we don't get. And thirdly, I would say that we need to lessen the financial gap between the classes, so that there is more. What is the right word for it? The huge gaps which we have between the rich and the poor.
But that's a global phenomenon.
No, but we're talking about what we want to see in our country. This is what I want to see in my country.
How would do that? How would you? So I get
Well, you
the
see,
first.
it's a global phenomenon, but it's not as like it is here. I mean, there, a driver's daughter can go and get educated. Here, a driver will never be able to send his daughter to be educated. Secondly, his mindset will also be, there's no need for the daughter to be educated. So there is a lot of difference. I'm not saying that the world is, there are other countries of the world have equality in terms of classes, but ours is so blatantly obscene. I mean, some people don't have food to eat, and some people are spending so much in one evening. So that kind of thing.
That kind of disparity needs to be bridged. I'm going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to come to, you touched on women's rights and equal rights. I'll say equal rights. Where did the idea of the Aurat March come from?
Where does it come from? It comes from the very fact that we believe in equal rights, and we feel that it is time for us, women of Pakistan, to start coming out and saying, okay, we believe in equal rights, and coming out and saying that we've had enough, we are not going to take this anymore. We're going to demand and push for changes in society, because otherwise this society cannot move forward. I mean, no society can move forward if half the population does not get equal rights.
How many years has this march been happening?
So 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
And what do you think, so I mean, we see it on social media,
Yeah.
but what do you think has been the one biggest tangible result of this movement?
Yeah. I see two things I'd like to mention. You're asking for one, but they're actually interlinked. So it is.
We'll do as many. I was just thinking the one big one,
So one big one, one huge one is, and it's connected to the second one as well, is the fact that every home in Pakistan today that you or he or I or she will ever go to will be talking about, these mad Aurat marches. What do they want? Why are they doing this Aurat march? Every home has this dialogue taking place. And I think the fact that a dialogue is started on why women are marching, what are they demanding, what do they think are their rights, why are they asking for, that dialogue is such a huge step forward. I think we've been working at it for years and years, but Aurat March broke that ice. Okay, everyone's talking. You may not agree. I mean, everyone is not agreeing with us, which is fine, because, I mean, with the things that we are talking about, we don't expect everybody to agree with that. We are talking about breaking patriarchy. So that, and it is linked with it. So the second achievement is that patriarchy has got shaken up. The families are asking their daughters, why do you want to go to Aurat March? I don't want you to go to Aurat March. Father will say, no, you cannot go there. Brother will say, you cannot go there. What is happening? Why are they scared of Aurat March? Because something is happening in society. What is happening? I mean, in other words, in the jargon of today, women are getting empowered. They are getting confident to be vocal about what they want. And that is what we started. When we started Aurat March, that was our idea. We must tell the world that we are not ready to continue being accepted. We are not ready to be told today that when you get married, only your dead body will come out of that house. We've had enough of that, centuries of that. Now we are not going to do it anymore. We will say, "ठीक है, you don't take care of us to the family. We will take care of us."
Ourselves, but we will not bear this violence on our bodies. And that is what this slogan, which people got so crazy about, Mera jism, meri marzi, my body, my wish. I mean,
Who came up with that?
you know, it was brought by some person, some person who just came with
It was
that
one of the
slogan.
boards,
Yes, we had not created it. But when Aurat March was attacked for allowing that slogan, we said, well, wow, this is a slogan that we have to adopt. This is us. This is what we are demanding, that no one will touch our body unless we allow it. So it is about that. It is about consent, na?
Absolutely.
And consent is so important. You have daughters. You don't want your daughter to be touched by a man unless she allows him to be touched. So why are people so upset about this slogan? Everywhere I try to explain this slogan, but this is what it is.
Because they may not view it as a slogan on consent. They may view it as a slogan on exhibitionism.
How can it be a slogan?
I'm just saying that maybe the more conservative minded might not think of it from a perspective of consent.
Do you think so?
Just
I
a
don't
thought,
know how.
you know.
Yeah,
Maybe they're
possibly.
thinking that, oh, you know what, if they're going to operate with this, their mind goes into the dark.
It's
the dark
actually,
side.
to tell you the truth, it's actually about controlling the female sex. It's about saying, okay, no, you must not have your own thoughts and ideas. We are going to tell you. And that's what we've been taught now all these years. And so your friend was asking me, what have you been doing? So I just created this performance, which we call Her Stories.
Right.
Start it off by saying, think of the word history. It is basically his story.
His story.
Because her story has never been written.
That's a first. I've never ever seen it that way.
And there's this very dear friend of mine and an incredible Urdu poet. Everyone's heard of her name, Fehmida Riaz, and she gave me this. She wrote it specially for a performance for me. It's in Urdu. I'll just say 2 lines. तारीख हिस्ट्री तारीख लिखी जो मर्दों ने तारीख लिखी जो मर्दों ने हैं कितने अधूरे बाब इसमें अधूरे हाफ चैप्टर्स तारीख लिखी जो मर्दों ने हैं कितने अधूरे बाब इसमें गुम हो गए वक्त की गर्द में जो वो तुमको फिर से लिखने हैं. Addressing it to the women, that you have to now start writing your stories.
And all the chapters that were left.
And all the chapters that have kind of been flown away with the dust in the wind. And that's what's happened. Who are our heroines? And we have incredible ones. If we really look at history, I mean, look at the great women from always, from time immemorial, you know. But we don't acknowledge them. We don't remember them. We don't document them.
We don't celebrate them.
We don't celebrate them. They die. And anyway, it's so much to say.
No, it's fine. But this is where it gets interesting, because I'm trying to think that, okay, so you've got a clear vision on this, right? You've got a clear slogan that represents what that vision is. It's all about equality. I get that. You know, and as a father of 2 daughters, I 100% see the point, and I would want that for my kids as well.
Of course.
Is there a society, a model society that you've come across that does it really well for women?
There's no model society. I don't think so.
Is there a model religion that does it really well for women?
No.
Even and you mentioned all religions are patriarchal.
Yeah.
Let's go into, let's say, Buddhism. Buddhism
it's
is about
extremely patriarchal.
But it's more about introspection.
Yeah, but it's extremely patriarchal.
And it's about the self.
It was created by a man who actually made his wife suffer for years and years. I mean, I love Buddhism, but the actual fact is that, you know, this is how reality is, you know. Left his baby child and walked away and left his wife to be a single mother for years and years.
So there's no religion, if you think about it, is there a religion at scale? There's the 10 big religions
but why
in the world.
Religion?
No, I'm just saying, is there a religion at scale that exists that was started by a woman? If you think
Not
about
that I
it,
know of.
you've got the three Abrahamic religions.
they're
You've
all
got Buddhism, you've got
matriarchal.
Taoism,
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
You've
No,
got
women have not started any religion. How
Wha-
wonderful. How absolutely wonderful.
Why-
Why do you need a religion?
no. So what do you think is the reason for that? Is it
But
because
there have
women-
been great female mystics.
Okay.
This is what
Explain
leads
the difference to me.
Mystics don't say, just follow me and what I'm saying is right. Mystics or Sufis are those who are saying, I'm on the path to learn the truth. So they're not egoists. They're not narcissists. They're not saying, okay, I know it all and I was given this knowledge from here, there, everywhere, come and follow me. That is the difference. Look at the time from Rabia Basri, who lived a very difficult life.
So आपने बात की mystic women की. You were giving the example of the woman in Sufi culture.
Yes. So I'll name Rabia Basri. Then I will take names like Mirabai. Like the Sufi movement, there was another movement happening at the same time, which was called the Bhakti movement. So these are all those people who, and of the female gender, who went in their own search for truth. And as I was saying earlier, that the only thing that they would say is that all that we know is that all human beings are equal, no matter what gender they belong to, no matter what race they belong to, what color, creed, etc. So basically, what it is, the search for the goodness in each human being, and the aspiration is to create a better and better person, and that can be done through dance, through music, through theatre, through arts, because these are things that take you on another level of profoundness.
Right.
Away from the mundane things of life. Okay, I'm going to attack you because you've taken my water and I don't get water in my pipe, so I will, all these mundane things the mystics are saying, leave aside. Life, of course, has to go on. You want to live, you want to eat, you want to feed your children, but become better human beings. Share what you have. Instead of stealing and saying that I should get this, or I should be the first. When we are crossing the signal, my car should be first. Doesn't matter if somebody has been standing there for 2 minutes waiting for the signal to cross, I will go in front of that person. These attitudes.
So it's a matter of just civic sense and training and all of that as well, right?
I think more like ethical, I would call it a sense of morality. And for me, morality is not about whether a man is talking to a woman or a woman is talking to a man. Morality is this, as to how we associate with each other. Right. How do we relate to each other?
And we're not doing a great job in teaching that these days.
Absolutely not.
Shouldn't there be a march for morality?
Okay, we'll think about it.
Maybe that's another project you can take on. What's next for you? What's another big project you're working on? Obviously, you've got your hands full these days, but what's your next big thing that you want to achieve?
I'll use this platform to talk about it, because I think it's, for me at this stage in my life, it's very important. And that is that I've been teaching and performing for the last almost 50 years. And in this process, of course, I've taught a lot of students who are now doing their own thing. They may be doing even like modern dance or contemporary dance, whatever. But they're associated with the arts in some way or the other. And then, of course, there are lots of people who still work with me. We have a sort of a company. We perform on a very regular basis. What I am working on and want to leave as behind me when I'm not there tomorrow is that there should be an institution that continues the classical art forms, the traditions of classical art forms. Because I feel that at present, there's no institution that's looking at the classical art forms.
Even Napa?
Even Napa doesn't even have a dance department.
Isn't it called the National Association for Performing Arts or something? The
It
PMEA
does. Can you
stand for
imagine
Performing
that?
Arts?
It's called the National Academy of Performing Arts.
Academy of Performing Arts, yes.
But it does not have a dance department. And since the time
How
it was
ironic.
created, I've been shouting this out. What are you people doing? But they don't.
So it's just a National Academy of Arts.
So, yeah. So what I feel is important that we have a space where these traditions can go on, where people who've learned over the years can go on practicing, teaching, performing. I have a whole archive of music, of dance videos, of books, so much. But to be able to create that space, and right now I have a studio, I have a space, but it's very small because I could not, it's just something that I've done on my own. The problem in this country is that nobody supports these things. You go any other country, the state, the city councils, the local governments, they will be sponsoring, supporting such activities. But here it doesn't.
That is a big challenge.
I think
without private support, it doesn't happen. Without private sponsors, it doesn't happen.
It's very tough.
So this is a shout out to private sponsors. Here's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
For them to support something that can help make an impact on the city.
And support a cultural center. There's no cultural center where girls especially can go feeling safe. Because whatever there is, what exists are so male dominated. There's a lot of harassment going on in these places. I won't name any, but whatever there are, where every girl who's talked to me has talked about the harassment that goes there. So, we need to, and they're all run by men, obviously, and they're dominated by men. Some of these places don't even have female faculty people. So, so that's what I want to do. And yes, I would really ask, request, appeal for support to set up something like this.
Would that be your legacy?
I hope so. Yes.
That would be a great legacy.
If I succeed in that, in being able to create that.
Hopefully this platform, and we're here to help support it.
And if I can't create that, at least my legacy will be that I've taught hundreds of students.
Right.
But I don't know what they will do. Where will they perform? How it will move forward.
So basically, you're saying that for the awareness around this to be created, there needs to be an outlet.
I think.
And this cultural center is that outlet. That people can go to.
Yeah. There's a preservation of these art forms in whatever way. A preservation of for instance, just the archives of it. Like for 50 years, there have been reviews of various performances printed here, there, all over the world that we have performed in. They need to be they need to be preserved. The music I've collected, the videos of unusual performances that I've collected over the years, they need to be archived and preserved. And I think the fact that I've taught so many students who don't have spaces where they can perform their classical things that they've learned. They are asked to perform, but Indian gaane pe kar dena, is music pe, us music pe, but not the class, because people don't tend to promote this. So at least a small space where these things are preserved, where these dances can continue, where performances can continue. I want a space where, for instance, you have guests from abroad tomorrow. Where do you take them to show your culture?
Good question.
Where do you take them?
Very few.
There's nowhere.
Actually, there is no place.
There should be a center where something is going on every day. So you can say, okay, tomorrow they have the Qawwali night. The day after they have a classical dance night. The day after they have a folk dance night. So we can choose. This is what I want to do. A space where something is going on every day. And I think and I've said this to every Pakistani leader that has come. I've approached them and given them this proposal. The city will change. The face of the city will change. The violence that we see, the frustration they have no place to express their feelings, their desires, their hopes, their love, their joy, their sadness. You do it through the arts, People, youth expresses through song, through dance, through music, the movement.
And that's all on TikTok these days, by the way.
That's all there is.
That's all on
that's
TikTok.
all there is.
Unfortunately, that has become the form of expression for Gen Z and Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
And because we're losing
And
these
how
traditions.
how mundane it is. I mean, so what about the profoundness of these arts? The classical arts are so profound.
Yeah, all of that
We've
is
lost
gone.
that.
Yep,
and we're losing it fast.
That's
whatever
true.
is left.
So here's an opportunity for you to do something. If you want to sponsor an opportunity like this, here's a great cultural center opportunity that I think we can build with Ms. Sheema Kirmani, with your support, with your guidance, with your leadership. Thank you so much for taking the time. What a wonderful conversation. I learned a lot. And I'm sure a lot of people will walk away with a lot of knowledge about the classical dance and the traditions and the importance of it in our culture and our future. And I think that it's imperative that we understand that we need to preserve this for future generations.
Absolutely. To be a society that is alive, you need the arts.
That's true.
Somebody like Einstein had said that science can take you in the shortest period of time from a point A to point B. But arts open up your imagination in such a way that you can fly to the high, where science does not reach.
Fascinating. Great quote. Thank you so much. Thank you for the time.